Hi, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday the 17th, and this is our 13th day of this unit, trying to give everybody opportunities to be sure of their biomolecules from last week and see those connections, and then dig into the details of enzymes. So, at the beginning of class today, or at the end, depending upon the period, students started by turning in any remaining enzyme web quests or digestive system gizmos or the biological molecule POGL. On the biological molecule POGL, we had notes on Model 1 and questions asked on questions number 1 through 10, and then we had 11 through 22 assigned the following day. So all three of those items should be in to me as of today. If that's something that you know you still have your biological molecule, or you need to finish your digestive system gizmo, or that enzyme web quest, you must do that ASAP and get that to me preferably tomorrow if you haven't already. So that's how we began. Then we started with some biomolecule review. I reviewed a whole bunch of details very, very fast in the hopes that students would already have this material fully pulled out and annotated in their notebook, pages 17 through 29. So what I've captured here is a link to what we saw on the whiteboard. I'm not talking through it again. However, it is simply me telling you the big takeaways from each of these pages. 17 was our cover page, moving 18, 19, 20, and 21. Then we went into the biomolecules. These are the minimal details that need to be present and understood automatically about carbohydrates and lipids. And then the last bit was about proteins and then nucleic acids. If students were looking at the whiteboard and thinking, it looks like I'm missing quite a bit of information, then they needed to go back into their notebook today after school and pull details from the video, from the teacher lecture video, and from the textbook task. We then did a little bit of play. Some of us used Quizlets, some of us used dot to dots, and other students didn't do the play part because they were working really hard on their whiteboard or their notebook upgrade. So that differed from class to class. We then reviewed a graphic that was an enzyme graphic, and let me show you what that looks like. Students got this little half sheet of paper, and I told them that I'd like them to notice that there's two chemical reactions. The first one is an anabolic chemical reaction, and an anabolic means that smaller pieces are being put together to make something larger. So this is an anabolic enzyme catalyzed reaction. So an enzyme is helping this chemical reaction. And this enzyme, you'll notice the fit is just perfect for this, but these two pieces are actually coming together. If you look at the second row, that is a catabolic reaction. Anabolic is building things up bigger and bigger. Catabolic is breaking things down. So this larger substrate is eventually going to turn into these two smaller products. So I asked students to take a moment and to label this diagram with the words enzyme, substrate, active site, product, and the enzyme substrate complex. I gave students a few minutes to do that on their own. I hinted at how many times some of these words were going to be used. And then we shared out our answers. Some class periods had a little bit of time, so we could tape this into page 30 of our notebook, and some classes did not, so they'll have to do that at home tonight. I then handed students a straw. And I gave them the straw and said, I would like you to take this straw and I'd like you to break it in half. Somehow break this straw in half. Students struggled, and it was quite humorous to see what they were doing. There was a lot of bending. Some students actually just grabbed it and ripped it in two with their brute strength. But most students worked on it. And then I said, well, how would it work if you had something called an enzyme pair of scissors? And I snipped my straw into two pieces so easily. And students went, oh, that's cheating. And that was my point. We then picked up our pieces of paper and pencils and went to the bottom of our page 30, and we drew the following graphic. This graphic is really important as it demonstrates the difference between you trying to break a straw with your bare hands and then you being given a pair of scissors that your teacher's calling enzyme scissors and just snipping it into two. So we built this graphic on the bottom of page 30. On the Y, we have energy, and on the X, we have the progress of the chemical reaction. We then have our reactants starting in the same place. And then one of our lines takes a really, really high amount of energy to get started, and then it makes the products. And then the other line doesn't need much more energy to get started, and then it makes the same products. One of these is the student trying to break the straw with their bare hands. And one of these is the teacher breaking the straw with a pair of enzyme scissors. So students were asked which was which. And then we filled out exactly which was which. That the solid line was the reaction with no enzyme. And that the dashed line is the reaction with an enzyme. So with that said, we then realized enzymes' job, their focus and intent, is to allow chemical reactions to happen easier. And easier really means with a lower amount of activation energy. The activation energy is how much energy is needed before the chemical reaction goes on its own. So here, if you pull this line all the way over, that's a lot of energy from here to here. If you look at what I did with the scissors, the amount of energy to start from here and to go up to here is just a small amount of energy before the chemical reaction happens on its own. You're still starting with the same reactants and you're ending with the same products. But with an enzyme, it's so much easier. After we completed this, we then zipped out, went back to our guiding document, which is, of course, our agenda, and started looking at the notes that we created. Yesterday, if I flip back to yesterday's agenda, there was a video here. And for the students that were doing the breaking down the walls, they did not get the graphic sheet that went with them. So today they can go through the short video and add their notes to their Google or their Doodle document, that first page. But for the classmates, I did go over some of the details that were on that level 1. And then depending upon the class period and how much time we had remaining, I may have shown a chemical reaction with yeast, or we may have gone farther into our our Doodle notes for level 2. It just depended on the class period. So the last thing that we did was we got rid of the straw ace lab at the back of our packet that was issued yesterday, and we replaced it with the 3 labs. The 3 labs are enzymes are sensitive labs, and I'll show you what that looks like. Students picked this document up when they were getting their graphic, when they picked up their enzyme chemical reactions. They also picked up this set of labs. And section 1 is the first lab. Then there's lab 2, section 2, and then lab 3. These are the reactions or the chemical reactions and labs we are going to run tomorrow and Tuesday. So tonight's job is students reading this to prepare so that they know exactly what they're going to be doing in class tomorrow for our lab. Okay, so again, any of these missing items, please make certain that you're upgrading your notebook and getting these things turned in to me first thing tomorrow if you haven't already. And then you're going to read your 3 enzyme labs. Have a great rest of your day.